Adjusting entries, deferred expenses. Since we know that there will be the timing difference of recognizing revenues and expenses between cash basis accounting and the accrual basis accounting, we should be very careful when we, as accountants, record revenues and expenses to our book. We need to do adjusting entries to bring an asset or liabilities account balance to its proper amount. What does this mean? When we record daily transactions, usually the records are based on the transaction amount, meaning the cash. Now, as we know, the cash is not the base to recognize revenue or expenses. We need to figure out when would be the proper timing to record them, or when are the actual contractual obligation and right are exchanged. The timing difference requires our accountants to do adjustment using adjusting entries, which are divided into many types, such as cash paid or received before expenses or revenue are recognized, and the cash paid or received after expense or revenue are recognized. Now we describe the specific 4 types of adjusting entries. The first type of adjusting entry is deferred expenses, that are the cash paid before expenses are recognized. A good example of deferred expenses is the rent expense. This type of expense usually requires a company to pay cash first, then use the asset in the future. That is cash paid before recognizing expenses. For instance, a company A rents an office from company B for half a year, from January 1st to May 31st, and paid 60,000 yuan. When this payment occurs, company A's accountant should decrease the cash balance and increase another asset accounts balance, which is the prepaid expense account. By debiting prepaid rent for 60,000 yuan and crediting cash for the same amount. When will the accountant recognize the expense? It will be the end of every month, because company A will consider using this office for 1 month and recording 1 month's rent expense. So at the end of every month, company A's accountant will debit rent expense for 10,000 yuan and credit prepaid rent for 10,000 yuan. My question is, why the prepaid rent account is an asset account? The logic is, when the company A paid 60,000 yuan in the first day, it has not used the office yet. Only after it used the office for a certain period, let's say 1 month, can it recognize the rent expense. The action of paying 60,000 yuan is to transfer the cash to prepaid account, just like converting from one asset to another asset. And this asset account, meaning prepaid rent account, will decrease gradually after company A used the office. Another example of deferred expense is buying and using office supplies. Let's say company A buys office supplies like print papers and pens, which are worth 1,000 yuan. After 1 month, there are only 600 yuan of office supplies left, which means during this month, the office supplies expense is 400 yuan. Okay, it is another example that cash paid before expenses incurred. So the cash assets first are converted into office supplies assets and then consumed as supply expenses during this month. So the bookkeeping procedure would be as follows. When buying the 1,000 yuan of supplies, the accountant should debit office supplies for 1,000 yuan and credit cash for the same amount. After 1 month, the accountant should do adjusting entries to bring the office supplies account to its proper balance, meaning from 1,000 yuan to 600 yuan by debiting supplies expenses for 400 yuan and crediting office supplies for 400 yuan. So there are the examples of how to do adjusting entries for the transactions that the cash is paid before the actual expenses incurred. So this section, I gave you some examples to illustrate what is deferred expenses and how do we do the adjustment for the deferred expenses. Thank you for watching this video.